Welcome back to the deep dive. We're here to cut through the noise and get to the heart of the information that matters. Today, we're looking at something that affects, well, millions of people. Tinnitus. That constant ringing or buzzing sound in your ears, it can be just incredibly frustrating. And because it's so common and honestly so tough to live with sometimes, people are always searching for relief, which naturally opens the door for products promising quick fixes. So our mission today, we're doing a deep dive into one specific product called EchoFree. It's marketed pretty heavily, actually, as a natural supplement for hearing and specifically tinnitus relief. We've gathered our sources, including some really interesting points from a YouTube channel, Mateo Guide. We're going to unpack the claims EchoFree makes, look closely at the science, or maybe lack thereof, behind its ingredients, and crucially, check out what real users are saying. We want to help you, our listener, figure out how to navigate these kinds of health claims. Because let's face it, the idea of a natural, over-the-counter fix for tinnitus, that sounds really appealing.
It really does. And what's fascinating, or maybe a bit concerning, is just how fast these products pop up. They promise solutions for really complex conditions like tinnitus, where science often hasn't found a simple answer yet. It definitely raises a big question, doesn't it? How do we, as people trying to manage our health, sort through all the marketing? How do we tell what's genuinely helpful from what's just? Well, hopeful hype may be preying on that desire for relief.
Yeah, exactly. So let's unpack EchoFree specifically. It's pushed as this all-natural plant-based supplement, okay? They say it helps with hearing generally and tackles those tinnitus sounds, the ringing, buzzing, hissing, the drill. But then the claims get quite a bit bigger. They talk about clearer hearing, less stress, even better brain and nerve function. Sounds almost like a cure-all. But here's the claim that really jumped out at me during our research, and I think you'll find this pretty striking too. EchoFree suggests it can actually fix or repair your hearing system. Think about that for a second. That's not just managing symptoms. That's suggesting a fundamental repair. For someone dealing with tinnitus every single day, the thought of not just masking the noise, but actually fixing the root cause, that's incredibly powerful, almost irresistible, you might say. But it forces us to ask, what does repairing your hearing system even mean in this context? And, what kind of proof would you need for such a huge claim?
Right. And to put that into context, we really need to understand what tinnitus is, scientifically speaking. Our sources, including Mateo Guide, are very clear on this. Tinnitus isn't just one thing. It's usually a symptom, right? It can stem from various underlying issues, maybe nerve damage in the inner ear, sometimes circulatory stuff, even how the brain processes sound. It's complex. And because it's so complex, the hard truth is there is currently no known cure. That's the established medical consensus. And very importantly, no supplement has ever been scientifically proven to heal the kind of damage that typically causes tinnitus. That doesn't minimize how much people suffer, of course, but it grounds us in reality. So when a product comes right out and claims it can fix or repair your hearing, well, that's a pretty significant jump from what the science actually supports. For you listening, recognizing that gap is really key. It helps you filter marketing promises from, actual medical progress.
That really puts it starkly. So they're essentially claiming to solve a problem that medical science itself hasn't fully solved yet. Okay. So if they're making these huge promises of repair, how do they say they do it? What's the mechanism? The marketing, as we saw, really hypes up certain ingredients.
It presents them almost like miracle workers, yeah.
Exactly. Like these specific compounds are the secret key. Our source mentioned GABA, Goa-L-tryptophan, and raspberry ketones. Let's focus on GABA for a moment. Gamma-aminobutyric acid. It's a neurotransmitter involved in calming the nervous system. EchoFree's angle is that it kickstarts healing in the hearing system. Sounds very scientific, very targeted. But what did our research find about taking GABA as a supplement? Especially when it needs to affect the brain or, the inner workings of the ear.
Well, this gets right to the core of how supplements work or sometimes don't work. It's about efficacy and bioavailability. The material we looked at points out a major problem with GABA supplements. They don't really cross the blood-brain barrier effectively.
The barrier.
Exactly. Think of it like the brain's bouncer. Super selective. It protects the brain from unwanted stuff in the bloodstream. And many things, including GABA taken orally as a supplement, just can't get past it in large enough amounts to have a significant effect.
So the idea that it could kickstart healing for tinnitus, which often involves the brain's auditory pathways.
It becomes highly questionable, right? The claim relies on GABA getting to where it needs to go, and the evidence suggests it just doesn't. Not effectively from a pill, anyway. It would need some kind of special delivery system, which EchoFree clearly isn't offering.
So does that mean any supplement claiming brain benefits from oral GABA is likely stretching the truth? Is that a common thing we see?
That's a great question. And yes, largely. It's not specific to GABA. It highlights how well the brain protects itself. Any supplement promising direct major brain effects just from swallowing GABA is probably overstating things. It's a common marketing tactic, actually. They take the known function of something the body makes itself, like GABA in the brain, and imply you get the same effect by swallowing it, ignoring the whole delivery problem, ignoring the blood-brain barrier. And it's not just GABA here. The same kind of skepticism applies to the other ingredients EchoFree promotes.
Like goiotryptophan.
Right. You might see it in some mood formulas, maybe, but there's really no solid evidence connecting it to tinnitus relief or hearing repair. None. And raspberry ketones. They had a moment in the weight loss world, remember?
Vaguely. Yeah.
But again, zero substantial, peer-reviewed science linking them to fixing tinnitus or hearing issues. Our sources show a big gap between ingredients that might have some, general health buzz in other areas.
And ingredients actually proven for a specific complex condition like tinnitus.
Precisely. General wellness hopes are not the same as targeted medical treatment. And in EchoFree's case, the claims for these ingredients just don't seem to be backed by solid evidence for this purpose.
That distinction is so important.
Yeah.
Okay, so the claims seem overblown. The science behind the key ingredients looks shaky at best for treating tinnitus.
Yeah.
But what about the people actually buying it? People desperate for relief, putting their hope and money into EchoFree. What happens then? What are the real-world experiences like? Well, our deep dive into user reviews, including the analysis from Mateo Guide and other places, it painted a pretty consistent picture. And unfortunately, it wasn't a positive one.
Dissatisfaction seemed common.
Very common. Lots of negative reviews online, which, you always have to take with a grain of salt. But the pattern was concerning. We found reports from people saying the product they got didn't even look like the pictures online. That immediately raises questions about quality control, consistency,
Absolute authenticity.
But more importantly, many users said it simply didn't work. No change in their tinnitus, no clearer hearing, nothing, even after taking it diligently for weeks or months. This directly contradicts those big promises of repair and relief. It wasn't just one or two people. It felt like a significant trend in the user feedback. A lot of disappointment out there.
And there's another thing mentioned in the materials that really stood out to me. A huge red flag, really.
What was that?
The mention of fake celebrity endorsements, seeing a famous face attached to the product.
Ah, yes. The classic tactic.
It's such a dead giveaway, isn't it? When you see some celebrity supposedly endorsing a niche health supplement, and you just know they probably haven't even heard of it. It's used all the time in this space to try and borrow credibility when the actual science isn't strong enough on its own.
Because people trust famous faces.
Exactly. It's designed to make you feel like the product is legitimate, even if the evidence isn't there. Seeing those kinds of endorsements, especially if they look suspicious or unverified, should immediately make you question all the marketing. Not just for EchoFree, but any health product. It suggests they might be compensating for a lack of real proof. It's a manipulation tactic, pure and simple.
That is such a critical warning sign. It really shows how careful you need to be. Okay, so pulling this all together, what's the bottom line for you, our listener, dealing with tinnitus and trying to find something that helps?
Our deep dive suggests pretty clearly, I think, that while EchoFree might not be an outright fraud, they do send you a product.
Yeah.
There are very strong reasons to be extremely cautious. Very cautious indeed.
Yeah, stepping back, the issues we found with EchoFree follow a pattern we often see with these kinds of supplements. First, you have the claims. They just feel over the top, promising to fix or repair something science currently can't fix. That's red flag number one.
Second, the lack of solid scientific backing for those specific claims. The ingredients might exist, but the evidence that they do what EchoFree says they do for tinnitus just isn't there in the sources we reviewed.
Right, the disconnect.
And third, the user experience. Real people trying it, and overwhelmingly it seems, not getting the results they were promised. That combination, big claims, weak science, poor results, is something to really watch out for, especially when you're dealing with a difficult condition like tinnitus, where people are understandably looking hard for solutions.
Makes them vulnerable to these kinds of promises.
Exactly. Which is why, ultimately, when it comes to your health, you really need to stick with treatments and strategies that have actual, verifiable evidence behind them. The advice from our sources is consistent and clear. If tinnitus is affecting your life, the absolute best first step is talking to a qualified healthcare professional, a doctor, an audiologist.
Someone who can actually diagnose what might be going on.
Precisely. They can help figure out potential causes, discuss evidence-based management options, things like sound therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, maybe even hearing aids if there's hearing loss involved. They can rule out other medical issues too. It's about getting personalized professional guidance based on real science, not just buying a generic supplement online based on marketing hype. That's the safer and likely much more effective path.
That really is the crucial takeaway, isn't it? Approach health claims, especially for something persistent like tinnitus, with a healthy dose of skepticism. Look for the evidence, question the marketing, and always rely on professional medical advice. Your health is just too valuable.
And perhaps that leads to a final thought for you, the listener, to mull over after this deep dive. In today's world, we're bombarded with health information, supplements, quick fixes, all marketed very aggressively. So the question becomes, how do you personally filter all that? What's your process for deciding what's credible, what might actually help your well-being versus what's just clever marketing, maybe chasing your wallet instead of improving your health? What are your red flags?
Something definitely worth considering. We hope this deep dive has given you some tools and perspective to help navigate those decisions. Thank you for joining us today as we unpack the claims surrounding EchoFree. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.